Hi, this is Misbah, and you are watching Wisdom Dose. Welcome to Element-3, Managing Risk, Understanding People and Processes. In this element, we will explore how to identify hazards, assess risks, and decide on control measures in a structured and consistent way. We'll also look at human factors that influence safety, such as why people sometimes take shortcuts or make mistakes, and how these human behaviors interact with workplace systems. This element builds directly on the management system principles we saw in Element-2 and will give you the practical tools to apply those principles in real workplaces. Learning objectives. By the end of this element, you should be able to clearly explain what a hazard is and what a risk is, and understand the important difference between them. You should be able to describe the step-by-step process of carrying out a risk assessment, from identifying hazards to recording and reviewing the findings. You'll also learn the hierarchy of control, a structured way to choose the most effective risk control measures. Finally, we'll discuss human factors, how behavior, perception, and human limitations can influence safety. 3. Hazard versus risk. A hazard is anything with the potential to cause harm. This could be a physical object, a substance, a condition, or even a way of working. A risk is the combination of the likelihood that harm will occur and the severity of the consequences if it does. For example, a wet floor is the hazard. It has the potential to cause harm. The risk would be the chance that someone will actually slip on it and how serious the injury might be. Distinguishing between hazard and risk is important because we control risks, not hazards themselves. We reduce the likelihood and severity, but the hazard may still exist. 4. The risk assessment process. The risk assessment process has 5 main steps. Step 1. Identify hazards. Walk through the workplace, talk to staff, review records, and think about unusual situations such as maintenance or emergencies. Step 2. Decide who might be harmed and how. Think beyond employees to include contractors, visitors, and members of the public. Step 3. Evaluate the risks and decide on precautions. Consider the likelihood and severity, and decide on suitable control measures. Step 4. Record your findings and implement them. In many countries, this is a legal requirement, and it ensures accountability. Step 5. Review and update. A risk assessment is a living document. It must be reviewed when conditions change or at regular intervals. 5. Evaluating risk. When evaluating a risk, you look at 2 factors: likelihood and severity. Likelihood is the probability that the harm will occur, and severity is the potential seriousness of the outcome. We often use scales, for example, 1 to 5 for both factors, then multiply them to get a risk rating. This produces categories like high, medium, or low risk. Using a risk matrix helps keep assessments consistent across different hazards and assessors. Remember, the aim is not just to score risks, but to use that score to prioritize which risks to control first. 6. The hierarchy of control. The hierarchy of control ranks risk control measures from most effective to least effective. At the top is elimination, removing the hazard entirely, which completely removes the risk. Next is substitution, replacing the hazard with something less dangerous. Then we have engineering controls, physically isolating people from the hazard, for example by guarding machinery. Next are administrative controls, changing the way people work through procedures, training, or signage. At the bottom is PPE, personal protective equipment, which is the last line of defense and should not be relied upon alone. Always try to control risks as high up the hierarchy as possible. 7. Human factors in safety. Human factors are all the elements that influence how people behave at work. Individual factors include competence, whether the person has the skills and knowledge for the task, as well as their attitude and health. Job factors include workload, job design, and the physical environment, such as lighting or noise. Organizational factors include the overall safety culture, quality of supervision, and clarity of communication. If any of these are weak, they can increase the chance of mistakes, rule breaking, or unsafe acts. 8. Why people take risks. People sometimes take risks, even when they know it's unsafe. This can happen for several reasons. They may lack the knowledge or training to understand the danger. They may feel under pressure to save time or reduce costs. Overconfidence, thinking it won't happen to me, or complacency after doing a job many times without incident can also play a role. Peer influence is another factor. If others ignore rules, a worker might copy them, and poor supervision can fail to detect or correct unsafe practices. 9. Reducing human error. To reduce human error, start with clear, simple procedures and thorough training. Good job design means the task matches the worker's capabilities and workload is reasonable. Supportive supervision ensures workers know they can ask for help and that shortcuts won't be tolerated. A strong safety culture, where everyone values and prioritizes safety, is essential. Finally, involve workers in safety decisions. When people have input, they are more likely to follow the rules. 10. Summary and exam tip. To summarize, always distinguish between hazards and risks. Use the 5-step process for risk assessments and make sure controls follow the hierarchy, aiming as high as possible. Never forget the human factor. People's skills, attitudes, and work conditions all influence safety. In the exam, practical examples are essential. If asked about hierarchy of control, for example, don't just list the levels. Give a workplace example for each. That's the end of Element 3. In Element 4, we'll turn to monitoring and measuring health and safety performance, both to prevent incidents and to learn from them when they do occur.